You can't go out playing golf having fun.
Fun. Senor, you've obviously never played Wingfoot.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
You've got to be kidding me, Vegas. Monday night. There's my picks for this week. Now, if you want next week's picks, I can give you those by Friday.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Wingfoot Sports Pro Football Kickoff. If you've been following us on Instagram, and you should have been last year, we picked at almost 68%. Now, I know some of you out there are saying, yeah, you only pick one game a week, but we're picking winners, folks. Sure, 68%. You go find somebody who's picking every game, there's no way they're picking 68%. So, of course, the brains behind it all, Chris Portente, is with us today as we will make our total season picks for some of the teams in the NFL. And just like we do each week, we're not going to try and pick every team. We're going to tell you some of the ones we like. And, of course, Chris will lay out his classic Wingfoot locks. And joining us today, we have Greg Hoyle. You should follow him on Twitter, folks. It's hashtag Beach House Bets. Guys picking better than 60%, and not just in football. He's doing pro. He's doing college. He's doing basketball. All across the board, he's better than 60%. And if you look at some of the descriptions at how we break down these games, we tell you how they're going to play out before they're going to play out. So right now, we are looking at the 2019 NFL season. And as we pick these games here, we're going to look at unders. And the reason we're going to look at unders is because if a line moves, if a player gets injured, right now the smart bet is on the under, because those lines right now are going to be in your favor. Say Melvin Gordon doesn't sign with the Chargers and he ends up holding out. Well, you're going to get the best number if you take the under right now, if that's where you think it's going. So with that, I'm going to bring in none other than Chris Portente to get us started with one of his favorite picks of the season, 4 totals. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, right off the bat, I'll just let you right now. Forget the smart pick. We don't go with the smart pick. We go with the lock. Okay? And the number one lock of the season over on the, sorry to say, boys, just happens to be an over. We're going right into the Miami Dolphins. So Miami Dolphins, quality team? Absolutely not. Do they have their problems? Absolutely. But at the number of 4.5, I'm telling you right now, the Miami Dolphins get 5 wins, and this is why. We're going to call this the relief pitcher theory. Take us out of football and over to baseball for a little bit, right? What happens with relief pitchers? Let's take Edwin Diaz, for example. Lights out last year. Comes to the Mets this year. Sucks. Can't find his fastball, can't find his zone, can't find anything. Every time a relief pitcher has a great season, they normally come back the next year and have a sucky season because they're on and off and they do shit with smoke and mirrors. This is the theory with the quarterback in Miami. The beard, Mark Fitzpatrick, not Mark
Ryan
Fitzpatrick.
We got you there.
Ryan Fitzpatrick. A little late for me. I got crazy hours. Anyway, for Ryan Fitzpatrick, what has this guy been doing his whole career? Has a great season, shocks the world. Everybody's ready to sign real contract. Comes back to the next team the next season. Doesn't know where he is. And what did Fitzpatrick do last year? He stunk up the joint. So he's going to come in this year, and he's going to have a pretty good season. And if he fades, if he doesn't, you got Josh Rosen right behind him, who it might even start based on this training camp that he's having. And this guy's got some chip on his shoulder because he's got a lot to prove. Now, if you look at the schedule of the Miami Dolphins, they might have 3 to 4 wins in the first few weeks. Week 1, they got the Ravens, okay? You can beat the Ravens at home, okay? The Ravens are coming in with Lamar Jackson in this running game and run. All you got to do is get a touchdown or a 10-point lead on that team, okay? And Lamar Jackson ain't beating anybody, okay? So they could steal that win right there. Then week 2, like I said, against the Patriots do not fare well down in Miami early games of September. Never have. They just don't fare well. Okay, you could possibly be 2-0 to start the season. Okay, week 3 is up in the air. And then week 4, you got the Chargers coming to Miami. And what is that? That's the West Coast team traveling to play that deadly 1 o'clock game. And that right there could be 3 wins in the first 4 weeks. Now you got the rest of the season to get yourself a couple of wins. I think it's more than doable. I got it as a Wingfoot lock. Oh, and by the way, you play Buffalo twice. That's usually good for a split. You play the Jets twice. Improved? Yes. Still the Jets? Yes. That's usually good for a win. And if you really, really need one late in the season, you got a home game against the lowly Cincinnati Bengals. So right off the bat, I'm telling you, this is the first Wingfoot lock of the season picks.
I love it. I love it. Going against the trend of taking the unders to start the season. One thing I want our listeners to note, Chris mentioned 4.5 games. There are 4.5 and 5s out there. So you got to look at your books, shop around for the best line, because that difference in one game is the difference between winning and a push or winning and losing a lot of times. So make sure you find.
And I've actually seen it at 4. I've actually seen it in a couple of places at 4. I don't know if you're going to still get that, but if you can, I would jump on it.
Excellent. All right, Greg. So what's your response? What do you think about the Dolphins over 4.5? That's the number we're going with today.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be good setting the tone for the season because there's going to be, some agreement, but then some disagreement because I love the situation, hate the team, and I kind of think they're going 0-4 until the bye week when they got Washington coming in week 6 for their first win. But that Cincy game at the end of the year does scare me. So I would play it at 5 under or otherwise just stay away.
All right, there you have it, folks. We have a little disagreement on our first pick of the day. Next one, Greg, I'm tossing it to you. We're going to the Giants. The G-Men, the local audience loves it here in New York. Right now, we've got their over-under at 6. Tell me what you like in this one and why.
Mainly, you're going to have the have and the have-nots in this division. So essentially, I don't like the bottom of this division, and I think we're top-heavy with Dallas and the Eagles. So I really think it's going to come down to those two teams at the top, and then really motivation. When are the Giants switching to Eli? When are the Redskins going to switch over to Haskins? And I don't really have the answer to that. So going off of Chris's theme, I don't like how the season starts here. They travel to Dallas, come home for Buffalo, which is kind of an interstate rivalry. I think you get some good split there. And then they go down to Tampa. So I don't like the heat that Chris already mentioned early in the season. And I also think, you're still going to have Eli quarterbacking. Washington there in week 4 is where I see an opportunity for them to win. But I base a lot of this around schedule. So they get Minnesota at home, which I don't like. And then they play New England on the road. Arizona, the West coming east, that'll be an opportunity for them. But at Detroit, even though I don't like that team, I don't like that situation. And I also don't know who's going to be quarterbacking late in the season. So from those situations, I think double losses against the Eagles. They play Green Bay, Chicago on the road. And then, I don't think they stand a chance to win that Dallas game. I really struggled, except for the Washington games, to find a couple of wins on here. And with the uncertainty at quarterback, I don't like the head coach there either. And I think a lot of losses within division and playing a tough division as well as the Patriots on the road. I couldn't really find more than 4 or 5 wins. Don't like the veteran quarterback. Everyone says that, the rookie's not going to be ready to get on the field. They lost Odell Beckham to take the top off the defense. So I think it's just a lot of loading the box and pound Saquon or dump off to Saquon, and there's really not going to be a lot of winning there.
Well, let's be honest. The Giants receiving corps is an absolute mess right now. Corey Coleman went down. Golden Tate is facing a suspension for the first 4 games for PED.
Yeah, they lost their top 3 receivers. The top 3 receivers are all got issues right now.
Yeah, so the Giants offensively are a mess when it comes to weapons for Eli Manning out of Saquon Barkley, which let's not negate Saquon Barkley and maybe Evan Ingram. But you kept mentioning the fact if you don't know who's going to be quarterbacking when. I'm curious, how do you guys look at a rookie quarterback coming in the middle of the season for a team like the Giants where maybe Eli has kind of worn out his welcome a little bit, saying, all right, we need some fresh blood in here?
I believe the Giants need some fresh blood in there, but I do not think the Maras are ever going to let that happen. I think they let it happen. Last year it happened for 1 game with Geno Smith, or 2 years ago, whenever that was, and that cost the coach's job. It's just not happening. I mean, the Mariners are not going to do that to Eli Manning again. This is his season to finish. I don't see Daniel Jones coming in, and I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be ready to come in at any point. But having said that, the Giants are a complete mess.
Yeah, and if you have a head coach that can help overcome that situation, look at Buffalo last year. Not that a 6-win season was all that great, but play to the rookie quarterback's strengths and play good defense. Right, the Giants don't have a good defense. I don't like the head coach there.
So, Chris, just to be clear, Greg likes under 6 wins for the G-men. Where do you stand on that one?
I think it's right around that number. To see the Giants win 7 games is tough. What'd they win last year? 5 games? I know we had the under on them last year and we hit. What'd they finish?
Last year they won 5. Yeah, 5 and 11.
So you're asking them to jump. You're asking them to jump 2 games, 2 full games with probably less talent than they had last year, and you're asking them to jump up 2 games. So I like the number. And the Giants threw 2 touchdowns last year for over 30 yards, and they were both thrown by Odell Beckham.
And we know he's gone.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
All right, so we're going to go over to the Redskins. Greg, you kind of laid this out when you were talking about the Giants there. Tell me your thoughts on the Redskins. Right now, we've got the over-under at 6.5 games for Washington.
Yeah, so and with that, we're going with similar themes. I mean, basically everything that comes out of this franchise is essentially a mess from the front office. Jay Gruden, really no right to be coaching in the NFL. So I try and stick with pretty common themes when I'm, looking at a game, and I'll look at a season here. Who's the quarterback and who's the head coach, right? So I think you're going to have not only a potential rookie change or start off rookie change, and have him going in there instead of Keenum. But, Gruden goes in and is 1-7, 2-6. I think you might be looking at a head coach change there. Way too much would have to go positive, and too many things need to click in order for them to even get up to 6, let alone 7 wins to bust that bet.
Yeah, you're getting an extra half there with the wins compared to the Giants. And then another thing, the one place they do have talent seems to be tight end, but Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis have trouble staying healthy these last couple of years. So even in the one bright spot that's been for them, it's tough if they can't stay on the field. So, Chris, what do you think about that 6.5 under?
Yeah. I agree with all that. The only thing that scares me a little bit is got to watch them stealing a game from Dallas. That Dallas-Washington rivalry always is tight. And it would not shock me, even as bad as Washington is, as bad as Washington is going to be this year, it wouldn't shock me if they stole one from Dallas. It just I've seen it happen too many times.
So
I'm in agreement. I think we may be able to add one more win to their total. Again, it wouldn't surprise me if they stole one from Dallas.
But even so, that only gets them to 5 or 6, I think, from where Greg was talking about.
Right, exactly. That's what I said. I agree with it. I'm just adding one more win than Greg had.
Go ahead.
So maybe wait until Zeke signs, because I would be a little concerned if they roll in on the road there, first home game and everything like that. If they roll into Washington with Zeke, I'm in good shape there. I would be a little nervous. I like that point there, Chris, especially if they're rolling into DC. Franchise still has hope, and they're rolling there without their running back who masks their poor quarterback.
The Tennessee Titans were on the cusp of the playoffs here again. Took a final game of the season loss to Andrew Luck to get them out. Greg, you've got some strong feelings on the Titans this season. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm going again to quarterback play, right? So the 9-7, even with all the shoulder issues and everything like that, I think my question is, is Mariota gonna finish the season? And that's a concern to me. And you got Tannehill over there. Not sure why you bring a starting quarterback from, another mediocre team in, but it definitely applies pressure. And I'm going I'm going again to a couple of swing games, right? So if we're at 7.5, it's only going to be a couple of games that concern me.
Yeah, and for the record, we do have the Titans at 8 in some places. So again, shop around for that number. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I'll take that. So the first one in the first 4 weeks is Cleveland, Indy at home, but that's still a tough assignment at Jacksonville, and then back-to-back road games at Atlanta. So I think that's a tough start there. And then I'm scrolling over into later in the season. I'm looking at another game that should be relatively easy, but it's not only back-to-back road games, but it's also sandwiched between 2 divisional games.
And you're talking about the Oakland Raiders.
Oh yeah. One of their 7 true home games, and potentially what's that? That's getting close to the last game of the season there. So. The Jacksonville's the last home game the following week there. So I mean, Oakland's going to be a mess, but their schedule and their travel is a mess. So them being home in that situation, I don't mind, and I just mind that should be the only cupcake there in the schedule. They have Jacksonville at Indy, at Oakland, then Houston, New Orleans, at Houston. So it's, that there's a lot of themes here that really I'm doing this in bunches because you're going to hear about Houston later because I think their schedule is tough as hell. And it was a cupcake schedule last year, which is why you saw all those wins. And, I think the games that, should be winnable games, I would want to see Oakland at home. That might sway my decision, especially if I can lay 8. I love it at 8 if I can get it at 8.
And one of the things is with that division too, it has been competitive. So we're talking about between the Texans and the Titans and the Colts and even the Jaguars beating each other up. There's no team that seems to pull away. So those 8, even to get to 8, is going to be tough earned. And we see a lot of times 9 and 7 can win that division as they're beating each other up. As nobody really has been the clear powerhouse for a lot of years in the AFC South. And you said it, Greg, so we'll go right there to the Houston Texans. A lot of people like the Texans. I feel like they're the darling going into every season. But you think the Texans are going to disappoint this year. Why is that?
I mean, let them have it. This was another one. So I'm going to go. I was a lean before this call, and I was also a lean before I checked out the schedule. So really, tough schedule. They went from the easiest schedule last year. Now, because they're the darling, they're going to be in a lot of more, primetime games, just like you mentioned. That division has some tough schedules. And they're at Baltimore. They play New England. I don't see them beat New England. And I just think, again, when you're looking at, Vegas knows pretty well what they're doing. If I see a situation there that might look like, hell, they could lose out in Oakland and then lose out in Jacksonville, and that's just a daunting road trip.
Yeah, that definitely looks like 2 games that most people are going to mark down as W's for the Texans. But when you look at the travel of it and you look at everything that's going to go into it, with the Colts being the week before, so the Raiders are sandwiched in between 2 division games and London, that could be a game that slips away from the Texans that a lot of people aren't paying attention to. Yes, major trap.
That's a major trap game right there. And also talking about that London game, I know the Jaguars coughed one up last year, but the Jaguars are going to have much improved play this year with a little better quarterback play.
A little better. Wait a minute. They could have put me and you behind the line there, Chris, and we could have played better than their quarterbacks last season. Greg would have been an upgrade.
I'm more suited for a tight end with my great hands, but you can have the quarterback. You can have the quarterback slot. But anyway, I agree with that. And the Texans, this might sound like a cop out, but sometimes you just got to keep it simple. They just don't pass the eye test for me. The Texans just do not pass the eye test for me, and They do nothing to get the blood flowing, and if you don't get my blood flowing, you ain't getting the money out of my.
It's going to be very interesting. Definitely questioned about some of the coaching early on in the season after they got off to that slow start. Also, we've got the contract issue going on with Jadeveon Clowney, where he's playing under a franchise tag if he plays here. That might not be his true position. A lot of stuff going on there. If he's not happy, that could cause a rift in that defense that has been really the stalwart that got them to the playoffs or in playoff contention here in years past. Greg has a couple plays he likes in the NFC North.
Yeah, well, I want to go with the Bears. What do you have there, 9 or 9.5?
So we got it at 9. There are some 9.5s out there, but the official line right now we're going with is 9. But you advise the people listening as to what they should look for.
Yeah, so look for, this is another, popular team, great year last year. And I really don't mind the quarterback and coaching. I just think, you talk about the Titans and the Colts and Houston having a tough division. You got Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit, right? So he's got to be one cupcake in every division, unless it's the NFC East, then it's two. But my issue, and you can lump both of them in, is who they're playing, because they are playing the Chargers and the Chiefs. And to me, it doesn't really matter the rest of that division, whoever else you have in there.
The AFC West, the NFC North playing the AFC West this season.
Right. And they also have New Orleans on schedule. So, I think there's going to be a lot of beating one another up. They've got an perceived easy game against Washington week 3. So it's back-to-back road games. And again, I don't like those situations. And then I would say, who knows how teams are going to play in London, because they are one of the games. And I like Green Bay and I like Minnesota better within that division. So I think wins are going to be tough to come by. So it doesn't mean that I dislike the Bears. I just think kind of their peak is maxing out around 9 wins. And if it comes down to it, and their last games are against at Green Bay, Kansas City, at Minnesota, and before that, Dallas, I'm good with them rolling into that 4-game stretch, even with 7 wins, and then looking at them go 1-3 in that situation.
Yeah, that is a brutal end to the season. They've got home against Dallas, at Green Bay, on the road, at home against the Chiefs, and then on the road to end the season against the Vikings. What do you think about that, Chris? We're going under 9 or 9.5 wins there for the Bears.
I got 2 words for that 4-game stretch: Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky is not beating any one of those teams in that 4-game stretch. I am not sold on anything about Mitch Trubisky. I love that under. I think Green Bay sweeps those 2 games from the Bears. I think Green Bay wins that division this year. I think the under for the Bears is the way to go.
And then, of course, Chris, as promised, I said we would bookend here with the Wingfoot locks. Your second lock, and I'll let you take it from here, the San Diego Chargers.
All right, well, the Chargers had 12 wins last year, and quite honestly, I don't know how they did it. Do they have talent? Do they have talent on that team? Yes, they have talent on that team. But what they did last year was something magical, because a West Coast team having as many road wins with that kind of travel schedule as they had last year is just something that is not going to be repeated. And if you look at their schedule this year, their schedule is just as tough, if not tougher. They have 4. You might want to go through this with me, Joe, if I'm not mistaken, but I believe they have 4 games where they travel east, and all of them are that dreaded 1:00 game.
So we've got the Dolphins in week 4, it looks like here. We've got do you consider the Lions in week 2? That's a 1:00 start.
Right.
They're going central there. We've also got them against the Bears at 1:00. And I'm missing one. Oh, and then the Chiefs are a 1:00 start.
Right. So those are 4 tough games right there. Okay. And then at somewhere in the middle of the season, Joe, you'll have to look for me again, because I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. But they go to Mile High
That's week
And then
7
they
against the Broncos.
Right, and then I believe, if not before or after Mile High, they go right to one of those East Coast 1:00 games.
So in week 6, the Chargers go to Miami to play the Dolphins on the road, and then
1:00.
the next
That's
week,
a 1:00 travel game, and then they got to go and play altitude at Mile High the very following game. It's just a tough season, tough schedule. I don't think they're going to have the magic that they had and quite honestly needed last year to do what they did last year. I just think they're due for a setback. I mean, they can win. What's the number? What numbers did you find it at, Joe? Did you get it at 9.5, or did you find it at 10?
9.5. There are some 10s still floating around there, but I think the Melvin Gordon issue you mentioned, Zeke's.
Well, the Melvin Gordon,
out.
I haven't even touched on that yet. That's a major issue. They are not the same team without Melvin Gordon. I don't care what.
They were 4-0 last year without Melvin Gordon. 4-0 last year without Melvin Gordon.
I understand, but it's different when a player has contract disputes and the trouble in the locker room and distractions and players being asked. It's a different animal. And they've already been peppering Philip Rivers with questions, and of course he gives all the right answers. But I just think it's going to be a distraction. I just don't think they can repeat what they did last year. And I like the under this year. I think they're due for a setback, and I'm going to go again with that relief pitcher theory. Typical Philip Rivers. If you look at his history, look at his stats. Good game, bad game, good game, bad game. Last year he didn't have that because they had a little magic, but I don't think they're going to have the magic this year. And I think they're going to have a big setback. And I love the under this year with the Chargers.
Those are your picks. One more time for you. We've got the under on the Chargers, the Redskins, the Giants, the Titans, the Bears, the Texans, and the over on the Miami Dolphins. We'll do some accounting at the end of the season, but don't forget to follow along over at Wingfoot Sports on Instagram. If you've got any other games or teams that you want some opinions on, shoot them our way. We'll get to them eventually. And, of course, Beach House Bets on Twitter, where you can check out sports from college football and basketball, and, of course, obviously the NFL picks that we've heard today. Everybody, for Chris Portente, Greg Coyle, and Joe Messeri, that's me. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wingfoot Locks by Wingfoot Sports. Have a great football season, everybody.